So, good morning, Daily Huddle. I have to share with you a conversation that I had. I was at this little party and I was talking to this guy, and we were talking about marriage counseling. And he's like, I'll never need marriage counseling. And I was like, well, how can you be so sure? And he said, I married well. And I'm like, oh, come on. That doesn't mean much. He's like, yes, I'm telling you, I married a communications major and I'm a theater and arts major. And I'm like, well, what does that have to do with anything? And he said, she communicates well and I act like I'm listening. Oh, yeah.
Mike's not a theater major.
No, he doesn't even act like he's listening.
That's true. That's
very clear. Good morning. Welcome to Wednesday on the Daily Huddle, where my co-host and I, Kathryn Sabol, and I talk everything communication and relationships, because we know that more effective communication builds better relationships, and better relationships, as Giovanni Gonzalez says, is the depth of your relationships measures the success of your life. And I think that's why we gather here on Wednesdays. So to keep us in that spirit, let's ask a few questions to some of our treasured, loyal friends. And I must start with you, Michelle, because it has been a while since I have seen you. So please tell me this morning, tell me what time it is and tell me, how are you?
Oh my goodness. The time is now, right now, because that's the only time we have. And I am fantabulous because I am back on the Daily Huddle and getting my day started off on the right foot.
Oh, we are so delighted to have you here. I was thinking she is the way she says she is, and she is fantabulous. I love that. I love it. Yeah. Rashida, good morning. I have not talked to you personally in a while, so please tell me, where are you? And what are you grateful for?
Good morning. Good morning. Oh, I am in Jamaica. And I am grateful for life itself. I am so grateful for the universe blessing me that I'm doing what I love doing, traveling. So I am so grateful for that. Grateful, grateful, grateful. I'm telling you, I am so grateful to the ancestors and to the universe. It's like, I loving it. I loving it.
Thank you, Rashida. You're so genuine with your responses. We appreciate you. I'm going to ask one more question, and that is going to be to Andrea. Andrea, please tell me this morning, who will you hug today?
I'm going to start with myself, and we all should do that. And then I'm going to have some virtual hugs from some clients that I'm going to meet today at 10 in the morning. So I'm going to ask them for some virtual hugs.
Oh, I love that. They are so blessed to have you as their coach. I'd love to hear that. Let's dig into our question this morning. I love this topic so much because I think it's been a theme in my life. And the question is about how we can change the results of predictable events. Do we have the power to change the results of what we thought were predictable events? And Kathryn, I'm going to throw it to you to kick us off.
Yeah, this one's a good one. And I actually spent a lot of time thinking about this because it's something I struggle with. So I'm excited to have the conversation and hear what comes out of it. Our brains are designed to pattern, right? That's what keeps us safe. If we see a situation that looks familiar, oh, there's a tiger. The last time I saw that tiger, it chased me. Okay, now here's a tiger. I'm going to assume it's going to chase me. So, and that's an extreme example, but even for instance, when Tara and I started talking about this, we talked about, it's getting to be holiday season and going home. And what happens for most people when they think about going home, they get a feeling, right? For some people, it's warm and fuzzy and can't wait to get there. And for others, it's stress and anxiety and how am I going to make it through it? And there's a gamut, in the middle there. And so with that, we often anticipate what's going to happen because it's a similar event to something that's happened in the past. And In thinking about this topic, I started to write some notes and I thought, you know what? I'm not going to think too much about this because it's one of the pitfalls I find for me in taking me down a same predictable path because I'm outside of the moment when I'm planning what I'm going to say and planning what I'm going to do. And so I decided to let it emerge naturally and to be present in the moment here with you all. And Tara, I want to bring you into the conversation because I really have one answer to this question. And I mean, there's many answers, but I guess this is sort of the first and the biggest. It's do something different.
Okay.
Because when we have a situation where we have a familiar feeling or we're starting to identify, gosh, coming on the Daily Huddle, we do this every Wednesday. My brain starts to get, okay, what time is it? We're getting ready, and it starts to feel rote and routine, just the preparing for it, And so it's how do we get present and do something different? Because it isn't the same. The answer is they may be routine events, they may be repetitive events, but they're not the same events. Because
good point. Very good point.
yeah. And it's our brain that tells us we're going to have a similar outcome. And sometimes we want a similar outcome, and sometimes we don't want a similar outcome. But the truth is, it's actually not reality. It's a brand new moment in time, never to be repeated again, with people who are now different than they were, even if it was yesterday or an hour ago, or they're having different experiences all the time. So how do we get present to those moments and allow the creation that is already happening to be part of our experience? There's so many places to go. And I'm so excited to hear what you have to say, because that's what I love about how we communicate. But I just want to say, this is really all about what we talk about in the Daily Huddle, which is being present. And wow, when you do get present, which is hard sometimes, it's hard for me, there are miracles and moments in each one of those moments, really. There's miracles happening around us all the time, but we're the ones who are interpreting the data. So we're the ones who have to be aware of it.
Absolutely. When you talk about being present, I'll tell you something that I've learned from you, and I carry it with me. And I work really hard to, when I fail at being present, when I'm not the mom I want to be, or the friend, or the wife, or the worker, I remind myself that this is a practice. And that just because I maybe didn't nail it with Caroline and the same questions that she asks over and over and over again, maybe I didn't respond in such a way that I'm proud of, but I'll have unlimited new chances to answer those questions differently. And you've helped me to see that. I'll tell you how I first learned about this.
Wait, I want to stop you for 1 second.
Okay.
I'm just going to say one thing that came up for me when you said that. I have a friend, and I was telling him how challenging Michael was early on and how much patience it took, et cetera. And he said to me, life, God gives us opportunities to learn the things that we need to learn. And if we don't learn them, they come in stronger and bigger. And he said, and he started laughing. He said, patience was one of the ones you needed to learn, and you just weren't going for it. So you had to give birth to it. And he laughed. I was so mad. I was like, ugh.
That's awesome.
Randy. But what comes up for me for you is that, that's so interesting that you get the repetitive questions over and over again. And it's a brand new moment to you. Your brain is saying, this is the same question again. And wow, what an opportunity for you, if you wanted to see it that way, to really get present in those moments. And what's different? What is different? How can I be different?
I'll tell you one of the first things that's changed my perspective. Again, it goes back to a conversation I had with you. So you have a son who's nonverbal, and I have a daughter who is verbal to ad nauseum. And you said to me one time, you said, Tara, as much as those questions wear you out, I would give anything for Michael to ask me a question. And I was like, I have carried that with me, truly carried that with me. So one of the answers to the question simply is perspective. And I have never forgotten that.
Yeah.
And then I think that carrying that with me is it's reminded me what I've learned about the power that we have over our consequences, our circumstances, and how we can shift things. And I'll just briefly touch on when I first learned it. And it was when I was started in a sales job, and it was a scratch territory. We had no business, nobody knew me, and I kept trying to win sales and losing and trying to win sales and losing. And my buddies, my colleagues kept saying, you're doing everything right. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're doing it perfectly. It'll come. And they were wrong. You can't keep doing things the same way and just be hopeful for different results. Fortunately, I figured that out. I analyzed every conversation, every sales presentation. I kept changing it. I kept stop blaming things that I had no control over. I stopped blaming the competition. I stopped blaming the company. I stopped blaming the prices. I stopped blaming anything I couldn't control. And I put all that power back on me. And that's how I turned the tide in my work. And I love that we're talking about this morning, because that was work. And this is our life. And we can take that lesson and apply it to moments that are difficult with families and difficult with friends. I mean, it's not only in the work setting that we can remind ourselves that we ultimately have power over our spirit and how what we might think predictable events, how we can change the outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And work is our life a lot of times too, meaning that we spend a lot more hours at work sometimes than we do with our families. And that's a place where I can go really rote, especially now on Zoom, when we're not in person. There's not all of the 3D, like interaction, reading of the body language, all of that. And, it's like showing up to another Zoom call, showing up to another Zoom call, showing up to, and then there'll be days where I think this Zoom call is the only Zoom call today. Like, this is the best Zoom call. What am I going to do to make this the best? Even if it's just another one of those, it's nothing special, but how do I show up? And my experience is really different when I do that. But it's funny. It's like, I'd prefer to get off the Zoom call and do something fun, like something creative. But really, that's part of my life too. So why not spend that time on that call if I'm going to choose to be there, being creative? Why do we choose different moments for when it's a better time to be present and see? Like, I'm imagining when I go to my workshop, I love it. I get super present, like, ooh, and it's like, I'm on the Zoom calls. I just want to go be in my workshop. And it's like, but wait, like, this is my life too.
Mm-hmm.
All of it's my life. It's all included.
So you're rationalizing that, like I did it to myself this morning. Yoga is a practice in being present. And this morning during my yoga, I was thinking about my friend's son, and I was thinking about the introduction to my book. And I kept trying to not do that. So tell us a little bit about that practice, because we fail at it, right? But we keep getting back on that horse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in your case, it's like, I'm just imagining what I've learned through meditation is you just notice that that's what you're doing. Mm-hmm. It's not wrong in trying to get on the bike, like be on the bike, back on the proverbial bike, or be on the mat. It's, I'm not on the mat today. Like, physically I'm here, but my mind is totally elsewhere. And so watching the process of it, if you can't wrangle it, I mean, certainly be present when you can, but if you can't, it's not about beating yourself up that I'm not here. It's, wow, I'm really distracted today. This is interesting, and watching, and then bringing it back and watching and bringing it back, because there's a whole bunch going on in here. And data's coming at us all the time, information that we're interpreting. And sometimes we don't know exactly why we are feeling a certain way or doing a certain thing. And so just to be present with it and be like, wow, okay. Because then I don't know, it's something I've been struggling with a little bit, because then it's all of life, right? It's not like I'm biding my time in these moments, these boring moments of things I have to get done. Cooking dinner every single night or doing this every single, it's like, actually that's included too. That's part of my life. Like, why not take that moment as super special also?
Yeah, that's a very Buddhist Zen, or like even the Dalai Lama says, every moment is the best moment in his life. And
yeah,
that,
and I mean,
it takes practice.
Right. Well, and I'm terrible at it. I mean, I'm talking as if I know what I'm talking about, but I mean, I only know this because I'm terrible at it, and I have to keep practicing it. And like, you know, there's so many days that I'm just like, oh, trying to get through to get to whatever. Oh, I just want to go hang out with kids or play in the backyard or, but what I've been noticing is it doesn't feel good.
When you're not present.
It doesn't, well, yeah. And whatever it is, I start to feel this sort of weird, it's like, I haven't really been present in my life. So I've got to kind of recover from that later, you know? And so it's like, wow, I wonder if I were just in life and this were the only place to be right now, what would be the impact? I definitely feel more grounded, more consistent, you know, more.
Well, I just want to chime in and say you're not terrible at it, because we
Well,
talk so often, and you tell me many times how present you've been, how much that's been your intention. Let's take this practice and take it into our theme. So as it relates to communicating with others and relationships, I have a few things that are coming up for me, but I want to ask you how you take this practice of changing predictable outcomes, especially when you're going towards an outcome that you are not happy with.
Well, what came to me is that I have a relationship with somebody right now that I want to remain in. I want to keep the relationship going, but the conversations every single time are negative, like they go downhill. And it's somebody in my family, which is why I'm not gonna, you know, if it were like somebody that I didn't really care much about, then I would probably be like, okay, but I want to keep it alive. And so it's like, but every time, you know, it's like, that's the anticipation when I think, okay, I'm going to make the call and it's going to go downhill. How do I? And so that, in terms of communication, how do we take it in? I mean, how do we take it into our lives? It's envision something different. Welcome what is, because if it is a similar conversation, it's never the same, but if it is a similar one where it isn't what I want it to be, that's life too. Life isn't always roses, you know, and how can I be present in that moment? I don't know if that helps, but that's what came to mind. It's like, I'm anticipating this, I don't want to do this again, but I'm doing it for this reason. How do I show up anew, you know, and be me?
I think sometimes we put all the pressure on ourselves to make sure to, you know, try harder, work harder, bring our very best. I'm thinking about the holidays and how, okay, you know, the more everything's perfect and set out right, everything will go beautifully. And sometimes I think that as much as we are the only person that has power over our behavior and our thoughts and how we show up, I think accepting a little bit is part of it too. I'll tell you, and then I'd love to hear what others are thinking. I'll tell you, and you know this about me, but most of y'all don't know what I'm about to share. And it's been a struggle for a lot of years. And I'm not concerned to say that it's my conversations with my dad. He is 87 years old. And so every time I talk to him, we end up talking about politics, which really what we're doing is he's talking about Donald Trump and I'm chewing on my tongue. And when I say every time, and I don't want to make this political, but we don't align, and I'm not going to argue with him. So I anticipate listening to it. Then I just endure it. Then I get off the phone and I feel terrible. And I say to myself, he's 87 years old. Just give him that. And then just recently, I thought, you know, I'm his daughter. And wouldn't he want to have a deeper, more authentic relationship with me? And so the very last time I talked to him, I said, Dad, can we just not make our conversations about politics? Just waiting for like some kind of explosion. And he said, oh, you're like Ann, that's his wife. You don't want to talk politics ever. And I was like, wow, I should have said this 10 years ago. So I think it's going to take some practice on his end too. I think as he's gotten older, he sits and he listens to that stuff 24/7. But I don't know why it took such courage to say, can we please not go there?
Yeah, but doing something different. Look at the outcome of just trying something a little bit different, you know, which is what we started with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to hear from other people, like what's landing for you? What do you all do? What's coming up? Florence.
Oh, hi. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for this conversation. Um, that is challenging to stay present in every moment. But for me, yes, my faith plays the greatest role in that, because I put in the chat, I have learned to say everything I do, think, and say, I will do, think, and say as unto God. So, like my practice is, if who you consider God, is in front of you, you're gonna be like this and that, and you're gonna, do your best and straighten up, and be respectful and everything. So do this when you're cooking, I mean everything as unto God, as if God, this God, this person, this deity is in front of you, or you're interacting with this deity. So when I'm cooking for my daughter, whatever I'm doing, I want to be doing it in that way.
Mm.
And so whether I'm on the Zoom or whether I tell people going to the loo or what, just want to do everything because it helps me to stay present. And so that's
Oh,
what
you said you're going to the loo. I thought you said the
The
Louvre.
lose.
I thought you were in Paris. I was like, wow. Okay. That's great.
because what I've found in life is that a lot of, times we say, oh, I've done everything. I don't know what to do about this. I've done everything, but now all I can do is trust God. And then, but if I were trusting God every moment and thinking about doing everything as unto God every moment, then I will do it trust God in the first place, instead of trusting every other thing and then saying, all I can do now is trust God. So I'm learning to lean into doing, as I'm even speaking here, I'm speaking unto God. So I find
Sounds
when
very spirited. Thank you so much for sharing that faith with us. It's powerful.
so that's what I have to share today.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
much.
Florence.
It looks like Cece's got something to share.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I looked up the word patience, and what I found was one of the definitions said the ability to accept delay, suffering, or annoyance without complaining. And there was another one that said suffering without getting angry or upset. And I thought about that because I'm dealing with with over 250 days with no water. And at first I was really upset because I paid a water bill. And then the process continued on, and I have learned that there is a law. It's in Georgia that it calls it elder abuse. And so I wouldn't have never learned about that law unless God was sending me through something and experiencing having no water for such a long time. And I'm not the only one. I'm just thankful that God gave me courage to stand up through the situations, not have an attitude, not be upset, because it's in the tolerating, it's in the suffering, it's in the annoyance and not complaining where you learn something more valuable. So today I'm going to be an advocate for our community who has been suffering from lack of leadership, integrity and leadership. So I'm going to step up. That's why I'm running for city council in Conyers, Georgia. And you know what? I know I have the capacity to make a difference through this experience. Thank you.
Thanks, Cece. Yeah, it's really important, I think, to make a change when we see that we can, and how do we show up there? Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, I'm going to be brief. As an international athlete, I had a lot of study on the mind and practice. So something that occurred to me when we were talking about different outcomes from a predictable situation is the mind doesn't know the difference between what you've done and what you tell it you've done. And so perhaps think of different ways to approach a situation so that you get a different outcome. So going back to the tiger, imagine that this is a different tiger. Well, what might it do based on my response? Well, if I just sit still instead of running, what might happen? Or, imagine different scenarios so that you're better prepared and decide what would be the best initial greeting or the best start to the holidays, meeting your father again, for example, or meeting your sister again. Would it be better to let them start the conversation instead of jumping in? Just imagine.
Mhm.
And that might give you different options for it to turn out differently.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's that they say that worry is anticipating the outcome that you don't want, And so it's like you're describing using your mind intentionally in a way to get what you do want. And so in our idle time and our downtime, as we're thinking, we're not paying attention. We're just thinking about the things and maybe worrying about, oh no. And then we're creating versus using that time to go, what if it went this way? What if it went that way? To really create that. I love that. Thank you, Tom.
Well, thank you. Good morning, Kathryn and Tara. I like what Michelle just said about the power of imagination. That's really good. Listening to you both talk here, just to piece together a couple things, what really resonated for me, starting with just the awareness, gaining the awareness that we don't have to accept an outcome that is probable just because it's been happening before. And then I think what I've grown to understand and listening to you all on prior shows is, there's as odd as it sounds, there's a comfort in something familiar, even if it's a negative outcome.
Mhm.
Just the fact that you've been through it before, there's some like internal inertia
Mhm.
that goes with that. So then recognizing you don't have to accept that. And it can be a good thing to then, push in a different direction. And Tara, I also like what you said is to focus on what you can control. Because if you don't, well, you're probably going to get frustrated because you're expending your energy, where you shouldn't. And then it's, you may lose some of that early initiative or that early, energy to try to go in a different direction. So yeah, thank you for laying this out. Like I said, those are the points that resonate for me.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. What you said about the predictability and the familiarity and predictability and how that can be comfortable. It's so true. And again, that's because our brain is wired for protecting us. And it's like, if we can predict, even if it's a miserable experience, we know we're not going to die because we didn't last time, So it's like, it's that whole thing. And as opposed to really, it's our job to say, wow, but we could actually enjoy it. It could be different. And I think similarly to your point about we don't have to accept the outcome. That's what Tara, you said about perspective. It's like the outcome may be the same. I might lose my job. I might still have a bad conversation. I might, whatever the actual outcome is. However, my reaction to it, we've all met those people who've been through horrible things and they have this amazing positive outlook on life. And it's like, wow, versus somebody else who have had things happen and they don't have a positive outlook. So it's like, how do we take our perspective on this is the reality of what's happening and how am I going to choose to respond to it?
That almost feel like that's a transition to our next daily huddle, because there's so much power in unpacking, what's just that toxic positivity as opposed to real joy in the face of suffering.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you. I actually got out of it what I was hoping. I had thought through it and said, I really want to feel like I have some tools to move forward to, like, you know, what am I going to do today and be present? And it just always brings me so much to be here. And so, yeah, the tools do work. So I'll go ahead and close us out with our 7 tenets. And we always like to start with love. Love, share your love, give of your love, your time, your resources, and your presence. Honestly, your presence is the greatest present you can give anyone else. And relax more and stress less by eating right, eating those more plants, by sleeping, by laughing to get those endorphins going, as Tara always reminds us. And don't forget to move that body. Move it or lose it. That's what they say. We'll see y'all next time on the Daily Huddle. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. It
All
was a
right, thank
great
you.
conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're amazing. Bye.
You all
Bye.
too.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.